Hey guys, welcome back to the pod, episode 2 of Mission Manhood. Hopefully you guys are ready for a good solid 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Here we go. Let's get into it.
Okay.
All right. So, we actually have a bit more order this time, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Have a little bit of a setup, have a couple things we want to cover. What's our first one?
First one, we were talking about our experiences with the carnivore diet.
Mm-hmm.
So, me and William, we both tried the carnivore diet kind of loosely for like a week. Or at least I was pretty loose because I had like cheese and some other dairy products. And
we allowed certain exceptions.
Yeah. I don't know. How was it for you?
Each day was a little bit different. Each day I woke up with a little bit different energy levels of how I was feeling. Overall, I personally think I should have done it a little bit longer to actually see some more results. Obviously, a lot longer because we only did it for a week. But from my short experience, I would say it was a little bit miserable.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, definitely the energy levels would come and go. Like sometimes you'd feel like energetic, and all of a sudden around like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, I would have this just energy crash, just boom.
Yep.
I feel like falling asleep. So I think that's partly, I don't know, I watched a bunch of podcasts and I have a book about the carnivore diet, and they say the first 1 to 2 weeks is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, we only got like a weekend.
Yeah, we were in the hardest point.
We were in the hardest point. So, yeah.
For me, it felt like a little bit like each day got a little bit harder. And then the last, so like day 1, 2, 3, 4 were like progressively got harder. And then 5 and 6 got a little bit easier. And then for some reason, day 7 was like really hard for me. Because in my mind, I was like, oh, this is the last day. So it was like super hard. Like everything I wanted to, it was weird. It wasn't cravings, but like I knew what something would taste like, and I want that right now.
Yeah.
So it was a craving.
No, the funny thing is I actually kind of want to go back onto it because like right after that, I started eating normal food again, and I had some junk food, and it just did not taste like as good as I thought it would. Like as rich, I guess I was thinking it would taste. And lately now, like the past like week or two, I've been kind of just craving like red dark meats, like steak. I don't know why.
Yeah, it made you appreciate it, right? A lot more, like good meat.
Yeah.
But what's some of the reasons, like personally, what are some of the reasons you decided to do it?
Well, I was just intrigued by it because, Dr. Jordan Peterson was doing it, and you hear a bunch of crazy testimonies of people like overcoming autoimmune diseases. Their hair will grow back.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a lot of really good testimonies, and that's what intrigued me originally. And I think I will try it again this winter. Okay. Because, what kind of made me stop is how expensive it was getting. Like the steak, it's like $20 for like some pre-cut nice steaks, and that lasts like 2 meals.
Yep.
And that's kind of expensive after a while. And
especially when you're also trying to gain weight also. And so you're trying to get as much food in as possible. And so it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You can't afford the amount you need to be eating.
If I was just to eat like regular ground beef, like not organic, just cheap ground beef, like it definitely would be a lot cheaper and that'd be sustainable. But even if I'm going to buy like organic ground beef from Costco, it still would be decently expensive. I'd probably be spending, I don't know, $500-$600 a month on, actually probably less than that. I did the calculations the other day, and if the diet that I want to eat, it would cost about $500 a month for me.
$500 a month, okay.
And that's pretty cheap for just one single guy. I mean, I don't spend money on food really because I still live with my parents, but if I want to, I can do that.
Yep.
And I think I will try it this winter. But the real plus side to eating the meat is that it's just so easy for meal prep. You know exactly what you're going to eat every day.
Exactly.
And like for me, like I'm always kind of like wondering, like I go to the fridge, open the doors, I'm like, what am I going to eat? But no, it's just meat. So I think for me, it'd be pretty simple. Cook up 5 pounds of ground beef and have that for the rest of the week.
Yeah. And my personal experience a little bit was I'm thinking about doing it again also. But the thing that set it for me is because it was almost minimalistic, where like I only knew I was only eating one thing, right? Meat. And so it made me just more of a disciplined person. Instead of being like taking forever to make food, it'd be like, I can't decide what I want to have.
Yeah.
At the very end, you decide I'm just going to have like sugar and cereal or something like that. Just like totally like have a terrible meal. I was like, I only have one option, meat. And then there's a couple variations.
Eggs.
Ground beef with eggs. That's what I did a lot. Ground beef and eggs. And it just made it so simple. It might take a little bit longer overall to cook, but it's just like you have one option. And then once that's done, you move on to the next thing. So actually, I felt very productive for that week, more so than I usually do.
one thing I had to say, yeah, I love that. I know that I was kind of having an issue with constipation.
Yeah.
Well, TMI there, but
Yeah.
anyways, I looked into that today.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing some research on that, and basically that's just partly our bodies aren't used to digesting that much meat.
So it requires more water?
No, actually requires more fat, more fatty foods like butter.
Would that be almost like also eating, like adding fish in to more than just red meat?
You could, yeah.
Okay.
But no, like what's it called? Ghee.
Yep.
And like other animal fat products, just eating more fat.
Yeah.
It'll make it so you're more regulated when it comes to.
Yeah, because obviously I was experiencing the same thing because we went straight from eating junk food the day before to eating lean meat, basically.
Yeah, and literally it's like, okay, I haven't gone to the bathroom for 3 days. What's wrong with me?
Not quite 3 days.
Okay, not quite.
Yeah.
Like 2 days, and I was just like, okay, this is really weird. So
Yeah, obviously, because you're like, you hear horror stories of like death.
yeah, people dying from constipation. But
Yeah.
yeah, eat more fat. So I think next time I'll be eating a lot more butter.
Eating a lot more butter. Okay.
Yeah.
So like with it, we're having certain substitutions, right? Is that your plan to continue with that?
Like as far as
Like having cheese, raw milk, right? Specifically raw milk and
yeah, I kind of came up with this idea plan or this diet plan for me that I think would work. It would consist of raw dairy, meat, and then the only type of grain that I would ever allow would be Ezekiel bread.
Why?
Just because it's sprouted, it's organic, it's actually biblical bread, dude. Like the actual recipe for it is in Ezekiel. That's why it's called Ezekiel.
Yeah, I've seen the Bible verse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, it's biblical bread, man.
Yeah, filled with the Holy Spirit and holy bread. Yeah. I never really got the whole like. I get it. They're using a recipe in Ezekiel, but does that get them sales? I've always wondered that.
I don't know. I just think they're just a Christian company.
Yeah.
But I really like the bread, and it's just super healthy, and it's a lot easier to digest.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I will be going mostly carnivore, and I know carnivore, like strict carnivore people will be like, well, you're not a true carnivore.
Or they even exclude pretty much all seasonings, right?
Oh yeah, they just use salt.
Yeah.
Like strict carnivore, it's literally just water, salt, meat. That's it.
Which is something I think would be kind of cool to try for a month.
I want to try it for a long period of time. I want to try maybe like 2 or 1, anywhere from like, I don't know. It would be nice to do it for 100 days. That's kind of like, yeah, 100 days would be like the ultimate kind of like, I feel like in 100 days you could feel some big results. So,
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, the thing you're describing is starting to sound a little bit like 75 hard.
Yeah.
Where like you go on the carnivore diet because you're cutting out all the junk food, which would be definitely part of it, and you're working out twice a day, reading 10 pages or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard of that. Actually somebody was asking me the other day, they are like, are you on the 75 hard? Because I was talking about, I have to go work out, and then I got to eat this really lean meal, and I got to go do this. And they're like, hey, the 75 hard? And I'm like, what's that?
Yep.
They're like, oh yeah, it's this. And I've seen the book now, and I'm like, okay, I know what it is.
Yeah.
Good, interesting. I don't know, maybe we should try it sometime.
I think that would be a good YouTube video, personally, because I've watched some older people do it. I know Joe Rogan does it sometimes, and other YouTubers that I know of, but not many younger people are trying it.
Yeah.
And making it visible. So, I think that'd be cool. I think we should try that out. Kind of schedule ourselves out to try different diets and make content based off of that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good video ideas throughout doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what I had to say on the carnivore diet. I definitely want to try it again, and I'm hoping for some good results. Hoping to grow back some of this hair. So
yeah.
And
then if that doesn't happen, we fly down to Turkey and we solve that problem.
Yeah.
That sounds actually a little off. So with going down to Turkey, what they basically do is they take hair from the back of your head and replant it to the front.
Yeah.
We should probably add context to what flying down to Turkey.
Yeah, it's basically just hair plugs.
Yeah, they're replanting your hair.
Yeah.
On the back of your head. Yeah. I guess a little like in between is should we just go on to the next thing, or
the next thing kind of we're thinking about Jidion?
Jidion, yep. I can give a quick preface to that. So Jidion, the streamer, sure a decent amount of people of you guys have watched it. He's a streamer that's known for doing crazy pranks of just making ridiculous videos and like almost like social experiments where he puts people in very awkward situations and he lives in that moment. He grew up as a Christian or in a Christian home, and then during his fame, he walked away from the Lord, and he never really talked about that until recently, where he came back and he chose Christ, and he's been changing his channel into that content, saying, I'm forsaking the world, and I don't care anymore about the views that I get necessarily. I'm choosing Christ. And it was, I listened to his testimony. It was super powerful. Yeah, that's something that happened recently. Yeah, I just think it's a cool thing because he had an audience of a younger demographic that all they wanted to watch was like rebellious things that are kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
And now his influence is starting to change lives. And if you look in his comments, like I was looking down at his comments, and these people were just saying like, praise God, the ones that were believers, and the other ones were like, you hear ones along the lines of like, well, maybe Jidion's onto something, or even ones that were saying Jidion's crazy and he's kind of going boring. You're getting all these different comment in the comment section, and it's all revolving around what is this Christianity and why is someone has turned to it.
Yeah.
And he talks about how he like dropped watching porn. He realizes that he's having to cut off from certain friends that are bad influences and that are not of Christ. And so it's a really powerful message to us on a small scale, right? Because we even have that in our own lives where we know there's certain people that are not necessarily building our relationship with Christ, or certain situations that we will put ourselves into that are not building our relationship with Christ. And so I just think it's cool for that generation, that audience, to see someone like that with all the fame, choose Christ over that. And he's choosing to have less views, to lose his popularity, not be cool anymore, to be with Christ.
Yeah. No, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some of those comments as well. Like some people are saying, "Oh, is Jidion? Is he losing it?" And like, no,
yeah,
like to a normal, well, not normal person, to a secular worldview, yes, it does look like Jidion's, kind of going off like, oh, he's gonna be a right wing conservative, this, that, la 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 la. He's becoming a fundamentalist. Like, obviously, if you have a secular worldview, you're gonna see that.
Mm-hmm.
But to us, it's like, wow, it's really cool that somebody's like willing to forsake the world in a sense. Like, yeah,
he's already losing his audience in some way.
But at the same time,
I would say he's filtering his audience.
Yeah, he is filtering a lot because now he'll have a better audience. Well, not better. I shouldn't say that. I should not say that. Not better.
A better,
more uplifting, more encouraging audience.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like. What was I gonna say?
And also, they're now tuning on to something that is seeking truth. So
yeah, something that's actually like
a healthier audience for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never really watched a whole lot of his content before that. In fact, just his testimony video only came upon my recommended just because like I watch other Christian content. So that's the only reason why I was recommended. I heard my little brother talk about Jidion.
Yeah, for the insane pranks he would do and stuff like that. And some of them were a little bit messed up, Yeah. That's what gets views, right? And he tells that, he would talk about it in a way, he's like, I feel like I'm kind of selling my soul he's like, I would feel like I'm selling my soul, not necessarily literally, but like he would feel that way. He was compromising morals for the sake of getting views.
Yeah.
Doing stuff that he knew was not glorifying to God, and he would continue to choose it.
Yeah.
And
in a way, that's what a lot of YouTubers do.
Oh, yeah.
Because like if you're just chasing the views, you really feel like you're just kind of like, you're portraying yourself as somebody you're really not.
Yep.
So you just feel like you're just living this lie just for the fame.
Yeah. And that's also, I think, a huge reason why a bunch of YouTubers burn out.
Yeah.
Because you can't do that for very long without going crazy, even if you weren't a Christian before, or you don't have the inclination, just feeling the need to live a certain way to gain more popularity and going down that rabbit hole. It's a short-lived life. You have to move on. You have to do something else. So
yeah.
That's very recent news. That's why it was relevant why we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, what was that, a week or two ago?
He posted his testimony, I think, 2 days ago.
2 days? Oh, 2 days ago.
2 days or 3 ago. But before he said, I'm choosing Christ, he had that. But the most recent video he posted is he went to a church and he talked in front of the congregation and gave his testimony.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
Right now, I'm just hoping for him he doesn't go into like, there's a stage where like a great example of this, just like, when they're saying, Dear Daddy God, please, I lift up my... Yeah, I'm hoping he doesn't... I don't know what sect to call that, where it's a little bit like Christians where they're just wandering. I hope he doesn't fall onto something that...
More New Age teachings, kind of like that kind of stuff, or what?
A little bit more just like like I know a lot of new believers nowadays. The first thing they kind of come on to is this very it is almost a little bit a modernized version of Christianity.
Mhm.
And I'm just hoping that he doesn't go that way. A little bit of a, you know.
Yeah, I can definitely see there's a lot of, new Christians I've seen, like they definitely start out with some really wonky theology. I have to preface that by saying my theology is not very firm or sound, I think, yet. I haven't really studied a whole lot of theology. Just what I've, been raised in.
Yeah.
Kind of like started to challenge some of those beliefs. Like, okay, so why do I believe this certain theology? Why do we, that's a good thing, I think.
So it's validating them.
Yeah.
Checking for validity.
Yeah.
And that's good to do. Yeah, I think the real reason I'm saying that is I do believe he's truly seeking after Christ. And if he is doing that, he will find the truth.
Yeah.
And so he'll go through that. Yeah. Because I've seen some Christians or YouTubers that claim to be Christians. And in my opinion, I don't feel like they're really truly leading others to Christ quite yet. And so I'm not being very descriptive with my words, but I'm just hoping he doesn't take his audience that route.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that really doesn't need to be said. If he's choosing Christ, the truth will set you free. Truth will set you free.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny because a similar situation like happened earlier on this year with George Janko.
George Janko, yeah.
Yeah, and that whole there was some drama about like, Logan Paul kicking him off the podcast and everything. But that was really cool to see because I started seeing clips of Logan Paul's podcast. What's it called again?
Impulsive.
Okay. I started seeing clips of that, and I just only really was watching it because like George. And and then, it was really awesome just to hear his testimony about how like, he wanted to talk more about Christ, and the other guys didn't want to talk about that, and that's eventually what
things that were not frivolous. Rather than talking to porn stars about how they made the money, he wanted to say, "Listen, almost you need help."
Yeah.
I think like
Yeah.
That's our editor.
Yeah, that's our editor. No, not really. That's our sister. My sister. I mean, our sister. Sweet home Alabama.
That's not making the butt.
But yeah, no, George Janko, just like listening to like, he was saying how like when they would go out on tours with Logan Paul and all the other guys would go out and partying, and then he would just stay within the apartment.
He'd stay at his hotel.
Yeah, hotel, and you just read the Bible, and he said other guys just
he's being convicted.
Yeah, he was just he was exploring.
Yep,
that sounded wrong. He was looking into.
Well, he was
looking into the claims of Christ, and that's when he really things started ramping up for him, and he's really just started like trying to find truth.
Well, he's another example of his family grew up as a Christian.
Oh, really? Okay.
But he never, they grew up, he was raised as a Christian, going to church, I believe, and he kind of walked away from his faith and chose fame, right? I'm going to chase this. He wanted to chase a music career. He wanted to be famous. He wanted to have it someday. He'd have to work just the classic thing YouTubers go for, right?
Yeah.
Don't want to work that 9-to-5 job. I want to do this. And I think he would probably tell you in some way he would continually choose the world, or, it's, I know when someone says selling your soul, they think of like selling your soul to the devil.
Yeah.
I guess a little bit. It's
well,
like
in a way you are.
In a way you are, but that's not what I don't.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of like conspiracy around that. Like, is Sam, what is his name? Sam Smith?
Yeah, they have conversations with the devil.
Or like, like they sold themselves out. Because, there's a lot of like lyrics saying like, I sold my soul to the devil. And you'll hear that in a lot of like secular songs. And, then you got a bunch of conservative conspirators get together being like, they get together and they have this little like, I don't know, contract they make with the devil. So yes,
that's not
that's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about like by the actions. I think that's what I'm talking about.
They realize they have decisions, right? I can choose this or I can choose Christ. And at the time, they're just chasing glory and fame. And to do that, they have to do certain things.
Yeah, that are not.
And they keep on making, it's like little decisions. They choose that one again. They choose that one again. Keep on choosing the blue pill over and over and over and over again.
Christ or the world.
Yeah. And that's what I mean by it. And honestly, that's what a lot of that's just what influencers do,
Yeah.
They have to get crazier and crazier to keep on getting more and more views.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of ties in with what we're going to talk about next. Dopamine.
Dopamine and productivity. Yeah. So I've been doing some research about dopamine, and the more I do research, the more I don't know.
Yeah.
So I've been listening, like the sped up version of it on the Huberman Lab. And it's really interesting to me, and I think it's super fascinating. I want to make a YouTube video about it.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to do my research. This is farther out, but I think it's something that's super important, understanding that you can use your dopamine cycle as a way to lead a life that feels more fulfilled and productivity. But what I think of it is like, well, first off, it's like, what is the point of social media? What do you think is the point of social media?
Like personally, like what people say, or like
No. Like what makes social media successful? What makes an app? What metric do we use to consider it to be successful?
dopamine. In a way, because they don't, like, creators don't use that.
Well, the metric would be is how many people are on it for how long, right? How many people can we get onto this app? So, example with YouTube, the best way to do that is they use an algorithm, they figure out what works, and they just keep on producing that and that. They're constantly editing to find out what people want to see more and more.
Yeah.
And the whole goal is to keep people watching and to get more people to watch it. And I think that's the dangerous part, where they have become almost so good at it that they're hooking people on to these things for years of their life, just spending it away. And it's because I think don't quote me this, because I'm not exactly sure exactly how this works. I want to do my research. I'm super interested in it now. But basically, it's almost like artificially raising your dopamine level, your base level, and that's where you find fulfillment now. That's where you feel content. And so I just think it's the problem with social media. It's because the metric we judge it at is having people on the platform. So they're just figuring out ways to keep people on it for longer and more people.
Yeah, they want you addicted in a way.
Yeah.
In a way,
For them to be more successful, you must be addicted.
Yeah.
That'd be the highest end of the metric system, is if you are constantly on it and you don't spend any time off of it.
Yeah. I heard some crazy statistic. It was that if you watch, or if you have 4 hours of screen time a day over the next, what is it, 50 years of your life, if you start like it was at 15. It was 15 to 75. You spend 4 hours a day on a screen.
Yep.
It's 11 years of your life.
Yeah.
That right there is scary. That's like actually kind of terrifying.
I saw something similar to that, but it was actually double the time, because it was talking about teenagers' average screen time.
Okay,
which was closer to 8 hours.
Yeah.
And they were saying you would lose 22 years.
That's insane. Well, then you think about it, half the time you're to be sleeping almost.
Yeah.
So like how many years of your life are you actually awake and not on your phone if you have that much screen time?
Well, if we're doing 8 hours, right? 8, 16, 24.
That's like, what, 2/3 of your life?
You're losing 2/3 of your life being either on your phone
or asleep.
And asleep. I mean, most people's screen time is not 8 hours, but they were talking about it was specifically talking about with school-age kids and how much they're on their phone at school. It was a teacher and a parent having a podcast discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just crazy. They're like, you would lose 22 years in 50 years if you were to keep this trend up.
That's insane. I don't think, personally, it's not sustainable. I think to an extent you kind of start to grow out of it a little bit once you realize, like, whoa, this is like a really big waste of time. At least that's what it was for me with video games. Like, as a little kid, you're like, oh yeah, video games are awesome. But then you get a little older and you realize, wow, this is kind of a waste of time. And like after a while, I just kind of get bored of them.
Yeah, and that's another way of what we use for dopamine spikes.
Yeah.
It's because we want that drive, we want to succeed. We got to break the next level, and then you break the level and you get that dopamine. People call it dopamine hit. It's, as lab people say, it's a dopamine high or a spike.
Yeah.
And we get addicted to that feeling. We want it again. And so we stay on that video game to do the next level and the next level. And each time it kind of like your dopamine goes up and then it goes down. It's like builds up, hits the peak. You got the next level. And it's just like video games weren't made to do that.
Yeah.
And life, it's almost like you should look at life that way, right? With different pursuits that you have. But video games is the short version of it, the quick version.
Yeah. And
so it's easy to get addicted to because it's more consistent spikes.
Well, I think the problem with video games and like I would say artificial dopamine hits is they're not real. Like social media, you're looking at it and you're like, oh, you want to see how many people liked your photo, this and that. And like just the thought of that, I'm pretty sure it releases dopamine because, like it's something that you desire. And the problem with that is, you only have a certain amount of dopamine like produced each day.
Yeah.
And
I
think that's how it works.
don't quote
Yeah, don't quote us on this.
on this. This is from our very limited knowledge.
But we do know, like, you know what a dopamine crash feels like.
Yeah, which is, yep, dopamine crash.
And that's when you get overstimulated to the point where you're just...
It's the after effects.
You don't have any desire, and I hate that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And that can happen with just too much screen time. Like, if I'm on my screen for over, like, 2 hours a day,
Mm-hmm.
I'll start to feel that way. I'll start to feel, like, kind of lethargic. I'll feel lazy. And that's the way I feel about a lot of what I call artificial stimulants.
Yep.
So
I think it'd be cool eventually we ever got big enough to have, what's his first name? Huberman on.
no, Andrew Huberman.
Andrew Huberman.
Oh.
He would have already covered everything that would be said in the podcast.
Yeah.
But that'd be cool.
No, I like
someday.
I don't really understand the actual mechanism. Mechanism.
Yeah, because
Mechanics of dopamine.
he constantly says that there's no such thing as a dopamine hit.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, you have a baseline that you ride at, and then it goes up and down, and you're kind of almost like in a cycle, I think he describes it as, and people kind of get addicted to it. Like, I believe he talks about how chocolate doubles your dopamine for a little bit, and he lists all these different other things.
Yeah.
And you kind of just chase that, like, when you have a lot of dopamine spikes.
What I was going to say is I don't understand exactly how dopamine works within the brain, but I know how it feels to desire something.
Yeah.
Like want to pursue something, and then, how it feels to be lazy. If this is a thing I've actually been learning. It's called delayed gratification. When you push something off, when you're like, okay, I'm not gonna have that donut. I'm just gonna work out instead, or I'm not gonna eat until after a workout or something like that. I know that sounds kind of stupid.
Well, I think that specific instance, you should eat before you go work out.
I know, actually, I don't know. For my case, I don't know. I'm trying to lose a little bit of fat, so.
But getting chiseled.
That might not be the
cutting season.
That's not the best.
Because you kind of need that food. It would be
maybe. That's debatable. It's debatable. I'm looking into that. If you actually need carbohydrates to gain muscle mass, but sorry, that was not a good illustration. I'm trying to think of a good illustration. Phone usage for me, like, there's like a lot of social media apps that are always like giving me off notifications, and when I'm at work, it's really tempting to pick that up and look at it.
Just check it. You're like, I want to check it.
Look at it real quick, and like especially with that new app, Laps, you always get these things, ding, 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 new notification.
Yeah.
Anyways, for me, I've been learning just to like, no, I'm not going to look at it for like another like half an hour or an hour, and just teaching myself to have self-control. It actually, I feel like, it feels really good once you're like that hour comes up. You're like, okay, I'm going to check my phone and see what the notification is. You feel more accomplished. You feel like, okay, well, I have self-control. I feel good about myself. And I honestly think, I feel like it's more pleasurable in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the opposite of that, right, is where you look at it, you put it down, and then 5 seconds later you look at it again just out of habit, and you start doing it constantly.
Yeah. And you just feel distracted. And for me,
and it feels like you're cutting your time in half now. Where like 30 seconds of it is like, I put the phone down, you do something for a second, then you check it again, just real quick, you log on, you swipe, and you select the app, you look at it for a second, check all the things, nothing new, you put it back down.
Yeah.
And that was really far away. Sorry about that.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah. I like to use my hands when I'm talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you'll end up, and then you start getting in that pattern, you realize you're being super unproductive, and you feel very unfulfilled.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. I mean, I would say definitely continue what you're doing, because the opposite of that makes you feel
pretty lazy,
pretty depressed, and you get nothing done.
Yeah,
you seriously get nothing done.
Well, I really like that feeling. Because lately, I'm just microdosing.
I am No, it's fine to use that.
Microdosing. I don't know. Will we get red flag for that? I don't know. Anyways,
microdosing happiness. No,
microdosing self-control, and it feels really good. It makes you feel better about yourself. Like, no, I'm going to finish this chore. I'm going to finish this task. I'm not going to get distracted. It just feels so good. Yeah. Anyways, we probably should stop rocking a whole lot.
Yeah, we will stop rocking for sure. Yeah, and the whole thing you're talking about with feeling unproductive, right?
Yeah.
With the dopamine kind of leads into some practices I've been currently trying to develop to increase my time of productivity or make my time more productive. And that's with speed reading recently. I've been learning how to speed read. I was talking with someone at my church. He was a janitor at a high school down in Moscow. The dude is very smart. He reads tons of books. And he was saying the problem with the students were having at that school was that they felt like they were being overloaded with the reading, right? And so they'd say, this book would take me this long to read. And he's like, I just don't have that much time in the week or whatever.
Yeah.
And the guy was basically saying is, one, the first time you read something, you're not able to retain a whole lot of knowledge, right? The level of reading that you're able to like retain all the knowledge the first time you read the book is like Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss, or just like My Little Pony books, or I don't know, children books, right?
Yeah.
And so what he was basically saying is, he's like, okay, so he told the students, he was like that cool janitor, that everyone liked talking to. And so he said, okay, what you're going to do, he's like, if you read this as fast as you can, just go read the book as fast as you can and tell me how long it takes you. And then the guy actually came back. He said like comes back a day or two later and saying I got it done in like a third of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, okay, now read it again. And the guy reads it again and he's saying, wow, this is crazy. I'm actually remembering way more, because you start reading something, you're like, oh, I already read that. And then you go to the second stage of like gaining more information. And basically what happens is in like 2/3 of the time, you're gaining way more information and you've saved 33% of the time.
Okay, so you have to read it twice though.
Yeah, so it basically says the first time, just read it as fast as you can. You're still reading, you're trying to gain information, but you're just reading it twice.
Okay.
Yeah, read it twice, because the second time you go through, you're going to notice stuff you didn't before, and you'll be able to understand the concepts way easier. And so that's what I've been doing a lot recently, and on a smaller level. Obviously, if you're having a hard time reading big words, you should probably, obviously, don't try to speed read it. Like sound it out, understand what the word means. But with just normal reading, yeah, he said, don't try to gain all the information the first time you read it, because you're going to stress out. I know I've done that where I've like slowed down my reading and I'm trying to think of every idea. Like when I read 12 Rules for Life, I read it so slowly because I was trying to comprehend every concept as I read it, rather than just reading it and then reading it again. And so that's what I'm currently trying to do. I'm doing it in school. I have found it to be super effective. And yeah, productivity.
And that's a good idea. And I started reading a book on how to speed read. And I just remember it was kind of overwhelming because like all the different techniques they had in there. I was like, holy cow, will I ever be able to read fast? Because I'm a really slow reader.
Yeah.
I don't know, I worry that I'm going to miss some concept or something. So I ended up like slowing down, reading twice, going back, trying to highlight it. And so sometimes if the book's really boring, I definitely won't get through it. If I get through a book, it's either really entertaining or really informative.
Yep.
So,
well, that's what he's basically saying. It's like your brain is like a computer, right? And that's too big of a file to like download at one time.
Okay.
You can't you're just not able to gain that information, but rather you're splitting it and you're making actually even smaller files. And maybe it's less quality the first time, but you speed read it through and then you speed through it again. So your brain can actually process it and get the information. So yeah, and I don't know, the technique I'm working on right now is where you just go back and forth from end of lines. So you go with a pen, you'll go from this beginning of the line and then you just kind of bring it to the other side. And you're not really focusing on reading the middle. Your brain will naturally just like go over it and just almost like assume what the words are. It's not great for some stuff. You can misinterpret it. But these are just some techniques I've been practicing and learning how to speed read. And I found them to be really helpful. So,
okay. Yeah. That's a good idea.
That would cover productivity.
Yeah. Well, I think that's pretty much it for all the topics we had to cover today, or that we had planned to cover.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Good job, DJ.
Yeah. Good job, Luke.
Yeah.
Sometimes like closing it out with like the verse of the day.
The verse of the day.
Let me see what the verse of the day is.
As we're doing that. Yeah. We're trying to be consistent, trying to get stuff out every week, hopefully, and get into some clips. And yeah. I realize we need to start saying
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
The yeah
podcast. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I can already see some good hoodies.
Yeah.
With that.
The verse of the day is Matthew 4:23. And Jesus went out about all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing all the manners of sicknesses and all manners of diseases among the people.
Where's that from?
That is from Matthew 4:23, King James Version.
King James Version.
That's the verse of the day.
All right.
Anyways, thank you guys
Yep.
for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.